Hey everybody, what's good, Classic City? Welcome to another episode of AthCast. I am your host, Matt Pulver, joined by Chris Dowd this time. Let's go. This will be a little bit of a shorter one this time. The third panelist was unable to make it, and that'll shorten the conversation by a little bit. But we did get into the agenda setting session at City Hall on Tuesday night and the Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement's candidate forum on Wednesday night. As always, if you enjoy the show, please do consider supporting the show at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/AthCast. Much appreciated. Let's get into that conversation with Chris Dowd about the week in local politics. I want to talk about the AADM, Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement Forum on Wednesday night, but first let's get to a few other stories. Chris, you've done some great reporting on District 2, the race between Commissioner Melissa Link and J.J. Jacobs. I would advise y'all to check out the interview that Chris did with Commissioner Link and her challenger, J.J. Jacobs. You can find that on the APN YouTube page and in podcast format. But you've got some news. You dug up Jacobs' resignation letter from the Athens Homeless Coalition, and it doesn't match up with the reasons he's been giving for leaving. Is that right? Tell us more about that.
He says that it does. I just want to say that up front. But previously, Jacobs said that the Homeless Coalition, was doing great work. It was just a few things he had an issue with, which is why he stepped down. Maybe they're big issues, but just a few things. Sort of like the proposed low barrier homeless shelter was one of them. That's in the homeless, the strategic plan to address homelessness. And he thought that shelter might be dangerous to residents, especially because there's no criminal background checks, and you might be kind of inviting in people who are violent criminals, for example. And he also said it might trigger people who are trying to get sober into using alcohol and drugs again, because there are no requirements for sobriety. So, there might be, your friends might be doing drugs or drinking or something, so that might get you into it. So those are his opinions, and he felt like they weren't really having an impact on the board. They were just kind of going forward sort of without him, and he wasn't really having an impact, so that's why he stepped down. But then I got his letter. And I'll just read to you guys what he wrote in the letter, which was, quote, "In light of the recent tragedy of the murder of Lake and Riley at the hands of someone that was not from Athens and should not have been in Athens, I cannot in good conscience be part of any actions that would welcome another such person into our community." And then later in the letter, he says, "I don't see this work as having any positive effect on Athens." So,
Whoa.
Yeah, so a little bit of a tone change there, in my opinion. He told me that this changed nothing. I've always been adamant that those with violent criminal histories should not be openly placed in a low-barrier shelter with the most vulnerable among us. We must find an alternative. The coalition is doing great work, and I look forward to working with them as a commissioner. To me, it just doesn't quite line up because he never mentioned Lake and Riley before as a reason. That was like the main thing he said right up at the front of the letter.
I mean, it doesn't match up with reality. Her alleged killer had an apartment. I mean, like, what does that have to do? It didn't have shit to do with.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the logic to connect those two things is escaping me.
Yeah. I was hoping you had some way to make sense of it, because I sure as hell don't.
I mean, I think the logic is, undocumented immigrants are dangerous because of this murder. And then homeless people might be dangerous too, and they're both like not from Athens somehow, which is not true, because most homeless people here are from here. But I guess he doesn't think that's true. Some people really doubt the numbers, and the numbers aren't good, to be fair. But
the numbers, which numbers?
They do these point in time counts every year, which are definitely inaccurate. I think everyone will tell you that.
Yeah. The point in time counts are significantly lower than. Commissioner Houle mentioned a number, I think Tuesday night, something like maybe 4,000, and that's over the course of a year. Don't quote me on that. I'll go back and try to find that.
Something like that, I think.
Yeah.
But from the best evidence that we have, it's greater than 50% of much greater, I think, maybe like 60 or 70% of the homeless people in Athens are from Athens.
Wow. I don't love that. I don't love that letter. I truly don't much appreciate, lumping in people without homes with immigrants, with, documented or undocumented, I guess he would say. But that's messy to me. I don't love that.
Yeah, and then he says, I don't see this work as having any positive effect on Athens, which that is not what he's been saying lately, at these forums or even in response when I asked him about it. Yeah,
he's becoming a little bit more of an enigma to me, because he's got a difficult thing that he's trying to somehow straddle some fairly liberal sort of policies with some conservative ones. I just don't see how you do what he's trying to do.
It's difficult. I mean, he is a Republican. He votes Republican, for example, and running as a Republican in the most progressive district in town, it's difficult. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not easy. I definitely expect some pandering for sure.
Sure. Oh yeah.
It's just, this is like, wow. It's like very glaring to me.
Yeah. Well, and I've been convinced, when I've spoken with him and hearing the interview with you and hearing him at forums, I think he does have some genuinely held beliefs that are, I think some people would call liberal. I would call them fairly liberal. I don't think it's not an entirely pandering sort of posture that he has. I mean, he's not concocting all of it out of thin air. These are beliefs of his, some of them, but which is who's the real JJ Jacobs, I guess, is kind of the question.
Probably both to a certain extent. I think just to be fair,
we all contain multitudes.
I don't think he's like just out there lying. I'm not trying
to
say that.
No. Yeah, I wouldn't. No, I definitely, I don't think that at all. I think I like the guy. But I do struggle to find in some sort of policy areas, like who's the real, if he gets, on the other side of the rail, next year, what do we expect from him? The resignation letter, JJ, or how he's been in public, JJ? Speaking of which, let's get a little into the agenda setting session on Tuesday at the, what's it called? The dorm room for local elected officials. City Hall. You weren't there Tuesday night, right? You were watching from home. Is that right? Yeah. Same here. New camera angle just dropped.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Well, at first I thought it was just a weird angle they were doing at first. But they kept using it throughout the whole meeting. And so I think it was intentional. And what the angle does is it doesn't like in the beginning, you kind of have this like kind of zoomed back view that like doesn't really, because it used to like show people's heads like in the audience, but now it like really tries to cut them out as much as possible. So you're looking at most of the ceiling. So that's always kind of weird. And then when people are speaking, it shows just the person at the podium, and then to the right it has the commissioners and the mayor who are kind of watching that person speak. And I don't have any problem with that angle really, but they're not using the angle they used to use, which is direct on the person speaking, because you could see people in the background who might be holding signs that say, you all need to resign or something like that, or stop the genocide.
Yeah, right.
So I guess they don't want those signs. They don't want on TV.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, because it seems like there was some conversation a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago when after all the hubbub with the fake rabbi and all that, where they some considered ending public comment. Is that right?
They want people to have to register ahead of time, sort of like the school board does it.
Okay.
They were talking about this at a retreat in January that I attended for a different reason, but I was also very interested in this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like shit. I will say that the cinematographer sucks. Like, why would you? And maybe just because it's new and I'm not used to it, but it's weird.
It's definitely a worse angle. Otherwise, they would have been using it before if it was the best angle.
Right.
They're deliberately trying not to show the audience.
Oh man, I'm gonna miss the back of your head and Blake's and Mara, and I'm gonna miss the backs of those heads. Let's get into the Fire Station number 5 saga. Everybody loves fire station news. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on with that.
Okay, so I have the whole history of it here.
Hey, let's go.
So yeah, the East Side Fire Station on Whit Davis Road needs to be replaced because it's too small. It doesn't have a women's restroom because it was built at a time when all of the firemen were men. And ironically, it doesn't have fire protective equipment like a sprinkler system.
Wow.
So I don't know who you call when the fire station's burning down, but anyway. So there's money in SPOS 2020 to build a new fire station. And the only question is where to build it. They could rebuild in the same location they're at right now. But, Athens has grown since that one was built. And the Whit Davis location just isn't ideal anymore. It's too close to fire station number 7. And so it doesn't give good coverage out towards the southeastern edge of the county. And people there just don't have adequate fire coverage right now. And the fire department also does a lot of health emergency calls. So it's kind of important that we get coverage for everybody. And Commissioner Carol Myers chairs the site selection committee. And after a year of work, they selected the intersection at Morton Road and Old Lexington Road as the new site. And that would be perfect for the fire department, but there are a couple problems. First, ACC doesn't own the land there. They have to buy it. And second, the people living there do not want a fire station built there. They're worried about noise, traffic, light pollution, wildlife habitat, and they probably wouldn't be willing to sell. And so the county might have to use eminent domain to put it there. And so that's just like a non-starter for commissioners, like especially Allison Wright, who just hates eminent domain, and so does Patrick Davenport. So the commission voted unanimously to send it back to the site selection committee, come up with another candidate site. So it's been bopping around in committee for a while. But Commissioner Carol Myers told us at the last meeting that the new site selection criteria are basically the same as the last one. They still need coverage in the southeastern part of the county. So they might even recommend the exact same spot. As Commissioner Carol Myers said, it's just Groundhog Day all over again. So I don't know what happens if they vote it down again.
Wow. And did I read, am I right on this? The price tag on the new site selection process is like $50,000, I think. Dear listener, I'll go verify that. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be another $50,000 because it's a outside consulting firm or we contract that out, I believe.
That could be correct as far as I know. I know that there are, Carol Myers is on it and the fire chief and a few other officials. Yeah, there could be some outside people as well.
Wow. The NIMBY energy in this town can get out of control. And listen, I wouldn't love a fire station super near me.
Right.
But there's also, I also don't know what that area looks like. How close is it actually?
Well, a lot of the roads there are, it's a pretty rural area and the roads are all like single lane. And so I think they're just worried about, fire stations buzzing through there, or, getting in people's way or, stuff like that, which I understand, I suppose. But.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But I mean, we're talking about the people that save our lives. Like, at what point does, increased obstructionism result in some really scary outcomes for people, between fire and EMS? Like,
and this really does affect all of us too, because, the fire department's, I think it's called an ISO rating, is like a national rating that determines like how good the fire department is in that area. Ours is the best it can possibly be right now. And so that means our, home insurance is lower than it might be otherwise, because we're considered to be a safe area.
Oh, wow.
Now, if they lose that the best ranking on that, that's going to cost everybody money, every homeowner anyway.
Wow. Yeah. Folks need to chill on this. If the folks who fight fires say they need the place to be at, X location, and it's not like amidst townhomes, it's not, it's not feet from people's doorstep. Let's let them put it in there. Please.
That's my opinion as well, for sure.
Chaplain Cole was going to be on today with us to give an update on PSCOB. That's the Public Safety Civilian Oversight Board, but she had to cancel due to medical matters with her father. Her father's fine. In fact, he's turning 80 next week.
Oh.
Yeah. So happy birthday to Mr. Charles Napper.
Birthday.
But Chaplain Cole was unable to make it today to give us an update on Peace Cobb. But in lieu of that, there was a lot of discussion of Peace Cobb at the AADM forum on Wednesday. You can find that forum on APN's YouTube page, and I'll link to that in the show description. Chris, what were some of your takeaways from the forum?
The big takeaway for me was how well Kalki Chile did.
He did really good. He's very good.
Yeah, he seems like he has his stuff together to me. And he made some specific allegations against Deborah that they may seem pretty bad if they're true. So he said that there was one man who spent 13 months in jail because he was homeless and couldn't pay a $2,000 bond. Charges were dismissed against him, but the DA's office never indicted him. They just kind of, it sounds like they forgot about him. I don't know if this, I really would like clarity on this. It sounds bad to me. And then Kalki said there was another time when an unscrupulous prosecutor who manufactured evidence in another state to convict somebody was hired on in Athens, and he withheld evidence illegally here, but he was able to stay on as attorney for months before he was fired. I guess they just really need attorneys so bad they just couldn't. I guess they felt they couldn't get rid of him. Mm-hmm. And I'm just speculating here because Deborah really didn't have an answer to these charges during the debate.
Yeah, and the one with the person who was locked up for what did you say, 13
months?
That runs so counter to everything we know about D.A. Gonzalez.
Right. I'm sure that she did not want this to happen.
Right. And honestly, that's on Chile. He bears that burden of proof or whatever you would call it.
Yeah. No, yeah. If this isn't true, that would look really bad for him. Like, why is he making this stuff up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was impressive. I'll tell you what I didn't have on my bingo card was him bringing up Michelle Alexander, the new Jim Crow.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, all right. So you're not as bad as I thought.
I'm sure he did that on purpose.
He did. But he didn't have to.
True.
He's interesting. I think Deborah Gonzalez performed really well at the debate. I felt
maybe in the abstract, but when she was faced with this kind of criticism, in the audience, I was like, you're going to respond to that, right? I almost wanted to be like, please let her respond to that. But then someone in the audience kind of asked the question, if there's anything that any candidate wants to respond to, now is your time to do that. And then she didn't really have an answer. So I don't know.
So there was a direct question about Peace Cobb. Again, that's the Public Safety Civilian Oversight Board. And it looked like every candidate up there, which really surprised me. Every candidate on the panel, except for Mama Sid, said that they support Peace Cobb. Even Stephanie, which I was really surprised by. A lot of people probably know this, but her husband is a police officer. And she said they have talked about that quite a bit. And she's in favor of it. And it didn't feel like she was pandering. She had what felt like a genuine answer of approval.
Yeah, the anti-discrimination movement has helped her out in the past. So I imagine, that going into that forum that she knew that she might get a question about that and that, she better say yes, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to say you don't support it at that forum, but I'm sure she does. Why would I think the purpose of the committee or the oversight board is to kind of bridge that gap between the community and the police. So, I think in some areas that they're welcomed by the police because it lets them, they have kind of an objective body to say, yes, the police, did everything right in this case.
Right. Yeah. And you can be vindicated by that board.
Yeah.
Where otherwise, in the absence of a board like that, you wouldn't, and speculation would still just fly.
Right. It's just the internal police investigation and who believes that.
Yeah. I'll say I watched a little bit of the last Peace Cobb meeting. I believe it was last month or a few weeks ago. And they were actually fielding their first actual case. And it was fascinating to watch. It's almost I've always been in favor of Peace Cobb, but it's always been in the abstract. I don't know what it would actually look like the deliberations. But watching them deliberate was really fascinating. And it kind of clicked for me. It's like, oh, this is a really good body to have. Just citizens really working through an issue, a complaint, like a jury, and everyone being really smart and considered. It made me really hopeful, especially after, I mean, how many years has it been since the establishment of the board until, it's actually just last month getting its first complaint or first case. It's finally happening, and it looked really good. Now, I will say I only saw maybe a half hour of the meeting, and it was a 2-hour meeting. So I don't know what happened in the rest of the meeting, but it was good.
And hopefully once people realize that this is, a body that they can take complaints to, that there will be more. Because I think these complaints are out there. Like, some commissioners were kind of debating, like, well, how many complaints are there going to be? I think they're there if the people know that there is kind of a sympathetic ear they can go to. I think they're going to start getting some complaints.
Yeah.
Not that our police department is bad. I think they're actually one of the better ones, for as police departments go. But I still think that these complaints are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hoping that it is well advertised or otherwise that pipeline is open for those complaints and complaints can find their way to the board.
One of the questions that the sheriff candidates got that stood out to me was about shackling, which I didn't even realize that. I'm slightly embarrassed to say didn't really realize that we did, with like the belly shackles and the
it was like a
shackles.
3-4 point kind of shackling, like I think ankles, wrists, and torso kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, and these are people who haven't been convicted yet. They're and of like nonviolent offenses, I think is what they said in the question. So I'm like listening to this question, I'm like, well, you better say you don't support that. But then both of the candidates did, which kind of was strange to me. Although they said it was just for safety. And actually, John Q. Williams, the current sheriff, mentioned something that happened. I think it was in Atlanta.
Yeah, the Brian Nichols case. Okay. Yeah, I vaguely remember it from the 90s, maybe, where a guy, Brian Nichols, broke free. I think it was in the courthouse, I believe. And so now, granted, that was also 25 years ago.
But this was like a non-violent offender who then turned violent in the courtroom and killed people, I think was what happened. Yeah, and so ever since then, I guess they want to take precautions, which I can't really blame them for.
No, I can't blame them. And with the staffing levels being what they are, I want to say it was either John Q or Tommy said that, were staffing to be more filled out, maybe they could think about unshackling. But
right, yeah, that was John Q. And he also mentioned the layout of the current courthouse doesn't really lend itself to not shackling them. Whereas he said he's providing input into the new courthouse layout, which hopefully we won't have to shackle people there because it'll just be a safer layout. I'm not sure exactly how.
Yeah, I think like the detention rooms would be closer to the courthouse or closer to the courtroom or whatever. And you just wouldn't have, literally just not have the distance that you have to travel with these detainees. One thing that stood out to me was Mama Sid saying that people don't feel safe going downtown
that was strange
or going to Kroger, which sounds more like a you problem than an Athens problem. Literally, who is scared to go to Kroger? It's like, homegirl, we all live here. You're not describing, it would be one thing if, you're describing, I don't know, some foreign place or some other state, whatever it would be. But girl, we all live here. We all go to Kroger and downtown.
Yeah, I've never felt unsafe downtown. I don't know. I don't know what she's talking about.
No.
Although overall, she wasn't as crazy as I maybe would have expected or something. She wasn't that crazy. No. Most of her answers were fine.
Yeah, they were fine. Yeah. But I will say, I got to say this. I am getting a little tired of some of this rhetoric about people being attacked for their ideas or feeling ashamed or embarrassed or whatever for expressing their ideas. I've lived my entire life in the Deep South, most of my adult life being a leftist and agnostic. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to bite my tongue over the course of my life in my family, both sides of my family, up and down my family. workplaces, all manner of social situations. But I don't complain about it. It's never occurred to me to complain about. I mean, well, okay, I'm complaining now, but that's only by way of like explanation. I'm just explaining that you can exist in a place where no one agrees with you and survive. I mean, if you go 5 miles in any direction from where we are right now, you are in the deep South, and my beliefs and your beliefs would not be well accepted. But again, I don't complain about it. Were you at the Chamber of Commerce debate forum thing last cycle when I was running for commissioner, right? It was like wall to wall conservatives, except for like the 5 little socialist kids that I had, volunteering, not little kids, they were college students. But otherwise wall to wall conservatives. It was during Mara's mayoral run. So there was like that Mara energy, sort of a louder, more vociferous kind of vibe. And, I mean, there were people standing up, yelling, booing at me.
Oh, yeah.
All manner of names being hurled at me. I mean, if they had tomatoes, they would have thrown them. The president of the chamber, David, I forget his last name, David Bradley, right? He had to come down the aisle and like tell all his folks to chill because they were absolutely just berating me. Mama Sid, after the forum was concluded, she accosts me and dresses me down. And it never occurred to me once to complain about it.
Yeah. Has that ever happened to a conservative candidate on stage? I can't recall a time.
No.
People get mad when, I quote them accurately or something. Things they say.
Yeah, right. Hell, they try to bring lawsuits against you, pretty much. I mean, and you and me know our little neighborhood trolls on social media that say all manner of wild shit at us. Like personal stuff, like just awful.
I don't want to say that somehow these candidates are encouraging the trolls. Though.
No.
Sure
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not what I mean. I just mean that like we take a lot of incoming and people spend a lot of time trying to make us feel some kind of way for having whatever beliefs we have.
Yeah. And death threats. So I can't, of course, Mariah Parker got them.
Right.
And Jesse Hool as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's Jesse got death threats. And that's one of the main reasons why they're stepping down this cycle. And like that we progressives would never do something like that.
Right.
And not even the most crazy,
right.
Not even the most fringy ones of us.
Right. We will publicly disagree with you. And I will tell you, if your idea sounds like shit or not, but that's the way the game is played.
Right. That's part of the First Amendment. That's the exchange of ideas.
Right.
I'm sorry if they can't take it sometimes.
Yeah. I just had to get that off my chest.
No, absolutely.
I mean, I once had Glenn Beck just wail about me for like 20 minutes on his show. This was back when he was a bigger deal. Yeah, Glenn Beck. Yeah. With Beck, I wrote a review of one of his books. I was not a fan. I might have started that one. But my point is that people are going to publicly disagree with you, and they're going to do it in some ways that you might not like or enjoy. But that's how life works. I don't know. That's how the game is played.
Yeah, no, if people are saying something that's false, like actually false.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Or, if people are being violent, if people are harassing you, if people are saying things that are just blatantly untrue, by all means, complain. And I'll help you complain about that. But people just publicly disagreeing with you or calling you out for something you said or wrote or did or whatever, I don't know, own it and fight back or go home or I don't know. But I don't know if we need to be complaining and saying that like, the whole political discourse in Athens is broken. It's like we're living in some sort of Soviet style, culture of fear and oppression. I can't even say what I really believe. I have to say it in whispered tones. Like what are we doing, guys? If you would like to support AthCast, please do visit patreon.com/AthCast. That's patreon.com/AthCast. See y'all next time.